I'm gonna do it. All right. Let's let them in. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Get the Book Done. I'm seeing several familiar faces. Hi, Pat. Good to see you. Hi, Bill. Good to see you as well. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are letting all the peeps in. And we have a lot of people who actually registered for this. And hopefully we have a good turnout. But I'm really, really happy to see you all here, and I hope that you enjoy what I've prepared for you. This is Get the Book Done: How I Wrote a Bestseller in 2 weeks and Used It to Increase My Speaking Revenue. And this is actually the AI edition. So, I've had a lot of people ask since I um, developed my advisory how to incorporate AI responsibly with integrity. Do I use AI at all with my writing? I've written and published 8 best-selling books, and AI can definitely make some aspects easier, but a lot of people are getting really savvy to AI as well. I'm excited to present this to all of you. So let's go ahead and jump right in. If other people join us along the way, uh, they'll just catch up. Just to give you guys a heads up, I also have my right-hand woman here. This is my VA, Krista Walker. Say hi to everybody real quick, Krista.
Hi, everyone.
So she's going to be kind of monitoring the chat box, making sure that she's flagging questions and capturing those. So if you have questions as I'm presenting along the way, please do me a favor. Do not interrupt and throw off my train of thought, but please just put the question in the chat and Krista will make note of it. And then towards the end of this training, we'll get to those questions and answer as many as possible. Okay? So let's go ahead and jump right in because those of you who showed up on time, I want to honor and respect your time. All right, welcome to Get the Book Done: How I Wrote a Bestseller in 2 weeks and Used It to Increase My Speaking Revenue, the AI edition. For some of you have been to the previous seminar that I presented with Get the Book Done, but there was no AI element to it, so you're going to learn some new things here as well. All right. So first of all, I want to welcome you, and I just want to say congratulations for those of you who showed up because you actually took the time to invest in learning more about writing your book, publishing your book. Some of you already have written and published books, but you're maybe wondering how you can leverage it and utilize it in a better way. You are in the right place. If you are wanting to take your writing and your brand to the next level. One thing that I do want to emphasize here is if you don't have a book, you are leaving money on the table. I'm going to say it again. If you don't have a book, you are leaving money on the table. Um, I once heard a quote, I think it might have been by Les Brown, who said, the graveyard is the richest place in the world because in it, there are people who had so many ideas, inventions, dreams, uh, IP that they could have shared, but they never did. And so, if you don't have a book, you're kind of leaving a huge amount of potential on the table, as well as an opportunity to earn well for it. Now, I want you to imagine holding your finished book 90 days, maybe 6 months from now. And that book could be the book that builds your credibility, that attracts clients, that opens doors to media and speaking opportunities. All of these authors that are featured on this page right here, a lot of us know their names. Mel Robbins, Dave Ramsey, Rick Warren, all of them had a breakout and a breakthrough with their book, with their intellectual property. Now, some of them had written several books before they got to the one that, became their kind of breakthrough piece. Um, but others, it was their very first book. So it doesn't really matter where you are in your writing journey. The point that I'm trying to make is they have taken their intellectual property and encapsulated it into a written product that has amassed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers around the world and has made a global impact while also increasing their bottom line in their business. So again, I reiterate, if you don't have a book, you're leaving money on the table. I'm about to show you in this training the exact framework that has help me and my clients actually go from idea to published book in record time. And I'm also going to talk about how I've leveraged my books to increase my overall revenue in my thought leadership business. So you're in the right place if you've been dreaming about writing a book, but you're not really sure where to start. If you are mid-manuscript, but maybe you are stuck and experiencing some writer's block. Maybe you have a book, but it's not working for you yet. It's not earning the type of money that you wanted to earn, or it's not opening the types of doors that you had hoped it would. Or maybe you want your book to build credibility, grow your brand, and open additional speaking and media opportunities. Perhaps some of you here have already written several books, and again, it's under leveraged, underutilized, or you're curious about how to leverage AI to optimize both your writing process, but even maybe your marketing process. So, really quickly, so you know that I know what I'm talking about. My name is Michelle. I am an eight-time best-selling author. I've written five novels and three nonfiction titles, and I do have experience with hybrid self-publishing and traditional publishing. I've also written best-selling books in 2 weeks, and I've done it three times. So three of the eight books I wrote in 2 weeks. And just so you know, I'm not making it up. Here are some of the covers of those books. And one of the things that I do want to say is that it's not your fault if you haven't finished your book. Some of you here already have books, and don't worry, we will get to you in a moment. But some of you have been thinking and mulling over a book and you just haven't gotten it done. And so I just want to affirm to you, no judgment here. It's not your fault if you haven't finished the book. A lot of us have been told that books are meant to come from lightning bolt inspiration, that that you get some idea that drops out of the sky and all of a sudden the heavens open and there's the book. And then you write in a feverish pitch and you have it done in a few days. That can be further from the truth. Books are actually born from consistency. Consistently showing up to your desk, consistently getting the word count in, consistently writing and executing, and then editing it and getting it done. What if your book, or what if writing your book wasn't about waiting for inspiration, but following a simple system? So, this is something that I personally experienced in the summer of 2015. That was kind of like my breakthrough moment when I realized that all the systems that I had created over several years of writing finally could be whittled down and honed into something that would allow me to finish a full manuscript in just 2 weeks. So, what happened in summer of 2015, I I'm a woman of faith, and I was praying and I asked God to give me a book release date for my fifth book, Atlas Died. And I was like, I know that at this time I was making my living from writing. So I had written and published four books before, but my writing time and track record had always been kind of spotty. And so there were some books that it took me several months to write, and then there were other books that it took me a couple years to write. And so with this latest release, because I was relying on the royalties from my earnings, and I had a readership that was ready and excited and waiting for my next release, I just prayed and I was like, God, when do you want me to release this book? Well, he gave me a date. And as I was looking at the date and kind of backtracking in my process, I realized I would have to write it in 2 weeks if I was going to make that deadline. And rather than saying, well, that must have been Satan, so I'm not going to listen to that, I decided that I was going to stretch myself and see if I could do it, see if I could write a full manuscript in just 2 weeks. I managed to do so. I used the processes that I had learned over the years and that I had perfected over the years. And the book ended up becoming a bestseller in futuristic science fiction. And that was one of many. But that moment taught me that writing actually isn't about inspiration, because there were definitely days where I didn't necessarily feel inspired to write and get the book done. But it is about structure. So here are the three keys that made it possible for me to get that book done in record time. And these methods could actually work for you too. So let's start with the first key. The first key is to master your writing process. Master your writing process. Here are some famous writers that you may recognize. We have Maya Angelou, John Grisham, Truman Capote, and Friedrich Schiller. And Maya Angelou, she rented a hotel room by the hour. She would bring a thesaurus, a Bible, a deck of cards, and sherry. And she actually asked the staff to strip all the artwork off the walls, and she would handwrite a lot of her work in that hotel room. That was the environment that she needed to be able to focus and get her writing done. John Grisham, he wrote his first novel before sunrise when he was still working his day job as an attorney. Truman Capote, he wrote lying down all the time, lying down with coffee, then sherry, and then martinis as the day progressed. And that was the posture, the position that he needed to be in to get his writing done. Friedrich kept rotten apples in his desk drawer because the smell, he said, triggered his ideas. Interesting guy. The point that I'm trying to make here is that you're not, all of these writers, even though they had very interesting methods and very specific tools that they utilized, they all figured out what worked for them. So you don't want to wait for inspiration. You want to create the environment that actually invites it. So just to tell you my process a little bit, because everybody has their own. And honestly, you're gonna have to discover what your writing process is. No one can tell you what it is. You kind of have to just experience it and do trial and error. But for me, I realized that my writing is best done in the mornings. I would wake up really early in the mornings, typically before sunrise. And there was a season in my life where I was living with some relatives and I was trying to get one of my books done. And I realized that I had to wake up really, really early before anybody else got up because otherwise I would get really distracted by noise. So I would wake up super early. And when I was trying to make my writing deadline and I was writing in 2 weeks at a feverish pitch, I started to put up blackout curtains over my windows, and then I would turn on my desk lamp in my room because it kind of mimicked the environment of early morning, even though it was no longer early morning. And then I would put on headphones and play like action music because that was a dystopian thriller. And so I played action music and soundtrack music in my headphones. And that was how I stayed in the zone to actually get the word count that I needed to get so that I could stay on task and get the book done. But those were some of the things that I needed, right? Everybody's different. What I will say is when your environment is right, the words tend to flow. Okay. The other thing that I want to advise you to do is show up every day. Show up every day and write. That doesn't mean that it has to be like 7 days a week. It could be 5 days a week. It could be 6 days a week. Something that I have personally done with my writing is I'll have a schedule, a writing schedule, and I'll give myself what I call a grace day so that let's say I'm falling behind on my word count. I pick a day that is, it's not something that is set for, okay, you need to get like 3,000 words done in this day. Maybe I only have 500 words that I need to get done in that day so that if I need to catch up because I'm falling behind, I can use that grace day to do that. So just figure out what works for you, how your brain works when you have the most energy, and then you'll be able to plan your writing schedule accordingly. Some other resources that I want to point you to are writing tools. Writing tools can be very, very helpful for actually getting your book done. When I wrote my very first book, my novel called Type N, I did not know about the writing tools that were available to me. And so I just pulled up a Word document and I was miserable writing that book. I remember telling friends at the time, it feels like I'm trying to give birth to a baby that doesn't want to come out. And that's how I felt when I was trying to write my first book. It was just agonizing. And I realized later, oh, this isn't working because I'm trying to use a tool that isn't conducive to the way my brain works. So I realized that, oh yeah, a Word document doesn't compute with my brain. I actually need to be able to write out of order because I get inspired by certain parts of the book at different times as I'm going through the process. And then I want to be able to rearrange it and put it back together. And so when I came across Scrivener, when I wrote my second book, it was a game changer because I was like, oh my God, it works the way my brain works. So, here are some writing tools that I would recommend checking out. And then again, practice, and over time, you can figure out, okay, what actually works for me, what doesn't work for me. So, Scrivener is a writing software that you can use again to organize your thoughts and your manuscript in different order. And then pocket notebooks. I realized that for me, I have ideas popping in my brain all the time. So I will use a small little pocket notebook, carry it around, and as ideas come to mind, I have a designated place that I can put them in. And then legal pads. I love using legal pads because once I have all of these different random ideas that are stored in my pocket notebook in different sections, when I'm ready to actually move forward with creating the book and developing the manuscript, I take it to a legal pad and then I do a rough outline and I sketch it out. And once I finish sketching it out, I usually will then take it to my laptop and type out a formal outline. And that outline, once I print it, that is what I'm working off of. I don't go back to the pocket notebook. I don't go back to the legal pad. I don't go back to any of the other paper notes. I just stick with that formalized outline because it has everything from my previous notes. So that's my process. Again, everyone's different. Voice recorders. Voice recorders can be super helpful if you drive a lot, maybe you have a long commute, and that's a really good place where the thoughts can go get flowing. Record some of your thoughts, record your stream of consciousness. You can get a lot of really good ideas coming out by using a voice recorder. If you need help transcribing the voice recordings, there is a free software, a free AI tool through Google called Notebook LM. Notebook LM.
Mhm.
That's where you can load your voice recording, and Notebook LM will actually transcribe it, and it transcribes it pretty accurately. Now, there's no tool that's perfectly accurate, at least not yet, but it does a really, really bang up job of transcribing what you wrote or what you said. And then AI with limits. Now, I know this is the AI edition. Don't worry, we will get to that in a minute. I'm not going to spill the beans, though, on how I use AI just yet. All right. Something else that I want you to consider is having a daily word count. So mine, on average, is usually about 2,500 words. That's because I don't typically write my books in 2 weeks. I've done it 3 times, but usually I try to have like a longer runway for getting my writing done. Now, consider this. If you write 500 words a day, you could get your book done in about 4 months. If you write 1,000 words a day, you could probably get your book done in 2 months. And then if you write 2,000 words a day, who knows, you might have a bestseller in 2 weeks. So I want you to be thinking about the reason I'm sharing this is not because this has to be your word count, but just to show you that as long as you're being consistent and showing up and you have some sort of structure to your writing rhythm, you will get the book done. And it doesn't have to take years and years and years. So I want you to remember that books are not born from creativity, at least not from creativity alone. They're born from consistency. Now let's talk about the second step, the second key. Set a deadline and work backwards. I love me a good deadline. Deadlines create decisions. Now, for me, I especially love them because I was literally just talking with Krista about this. I'm like, I'm kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. So I need to have deadlines in order to actually show up and do the thing I'm supposed to do. So deadlines can hold you accountable. If you have a deadline of when you want to release the book to the world, you can kind of work your way backwards from it. So here's kind of the countdown commitment and what that can look like. So you decide that you are going to first pick your date. When is the book going to be in your hands? When does it need to actually be done, right? Then you plan your timeline. And you work your way backwards from when the book is supposed to be published. And then you actually execute the process and release it to the world. So a good example of this would be, let's say if you choose to self-publish. Um, let's start from the bottom here, right? Market and release. So the book is actually done. It's in your hands. The physical copy's there, and you're ready to sell it to the world. Maybe you pick a date. Let's just say November 15th is when you want the book to be done, right? So that gives you roughly 3 months to have it done. Well, you have to consider these steps um, that are in between. So you're going to have to load the book into whatever self-publishing group that you choose to work with, whether it's KDP, Lightning Press, Ingram Sparks, Lulu, etc. There are many out there, print on demand services. But before you load anything in there, you actually have to have the manuscript that is fully formatted, and you have to have the cover that is fully designed, right? But before you do any of that, you actually have to have the manuscript edited and polished, and hopefully you have some beta readers who gave you some feedback so that it's the best version of what it can be. But before you do any of that, you actually have to write the book, right? So that's what I mean when I say work your way backwards. So let's say you started with this release date, this target release date of November 15th. Well, it might take you 5 weeks to write the book. Okay, so that's let's say 5 weeks from, let's just say August 15th for ease, right? 5 weeks, and that would lead you to like the second or third week of September. Do you have enough runway time to edit the book, get feedback on it, polish the manuscript, hire the right people to help you design and polish the book, and then load it into the print on demand service that you want? And do you have a strategy that's in place to help you properly market the book, right? So these are all things that you'll want to consider when you are releasing a book. Now, obviously, self-publishing is not the only way to publish a book, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I'm just using this to show you that when you set a deadline, it helps to create structure so that you can actually work your way towards completing the manuscript. The third key that you'll want to consider is knowing your publishing path before you write. So let's just jump into that. I already talked about self-publishing, but I want to break down each of them. So there's self-publishing, there's traditional publishing, and then there's hybrid publishing. These are the primary publishing options that you have. Self-publishing is also known as indie publishing. It's when the author releases their own work, independent of a traditional publisher. The pros about this, you maintain creative control. You have all legal rights to your intellectual property. You have a higher royalty cut, typically up to 70%, depending on which print on demand service you're using. There's no red tape, and you also have inventory and print control, again, with print on demand. The kind of the drawback to self-publishing, there's still a little bit of a stigma amongst actually, I'll be honest, there isn't as much of a stigma as there used to be like maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Some people used to call it vanity publishing, but honestly, traditional publishing is starting to, it's really struggling these days with Amazon and all the resources out there. Most people don't care if a book is self-published. They just care that it's well done, that it's edited well, and that the quality, the content is what they need. Sometimes you might have quality control issues depending on which print on demand service you use, which printer you use. And of course, you won't have brick and mortar distribution most of the time if you self-publish. So that's just something to keep in mind if that's really important to you. But I will say this, I mean, most of us already know this. What's the number one publisher? I'm not publisher. What's the number one bookseller in the world? Who is
Amazon.
it? I see several of you already saying it. Amazon, right? So if you can get your book on Amazon, you're in really good shape. And honestly, when people ask me, where can I find your book? The first place they say is, can I find it on Amazon? Yes, it's on Amazon. It's also on Barnes& and Noble. It's also on Audible, but yes, it's on Amazon. Okay, let's talk about traditional publishing. Some people really, really value traditional publishing and they still want to get their book published by a major publishing house. And if that's you, that's perfectly fine. It is the age-old form of publishing. Almost every book that you find in brick and mortar stores has passed through a traditional publisher. So you're thinking about Simon and Schuster, HarperCollins, Baker Books, Tyndale. There's a plethora of them, right? The pros with publishing traditionally is that you do have the prestige of it, right? A lot of times you also have greater quality because they have their own printers, they have their own editors, they have a whole team that makes sure that it's top quality. And then they have PR connections. So if you're trying to get, I had a client who told me I really want to be on the Today Show. I want my book to be featured on the Today Show. Like that is a dream of mine. I want to get on those like big traditional media outlets. And so I told her, like, if I were you, I would target traditional publishing because they have ties to those media outlets, right? It's kind of like a country club of sorts. Like they have different connections in those ways. And then advances. Traditional publishers, many of them still pay advances. Now, how much they pay depends on who you are, your following, how good of an agent you have. And then I'll also say this too. A lot of times they have wider distribution channels, so they distribute beyond Amazon. They can get into the brick and mortar stores as well. So that's something to consider. Now, the cons of a traditional publisher is that you get a significantly lower royalty cut. Sometimes that's even less than 10%, depending on what your agent has negotiated. Your rights are not guaranteed. I remember there was a time when I was trying to acquire the rights for a book so that I could adapt it into a screenplay. And the author who wanted me to adapt this book, she didn't have the rights to her own book. Uh, she had to go back to her agent and ask who has the rights to this book. And it was the agent who said, yeah, it's the publisher. They own the rights. They have the way that we cut the deal, they have the rights for X number of years. And so then we had to go to the publisher, and the publisher wanted to, charge this obscene amount just for an option. It wasn't even to buy the rights. It was just for an option, like a first look deal. So anyway, it was a hot mess. But that taught me a lesson. Like if you want to own your IP, make sure if you go the traditional publishing route that you have an agent who protects your intellectual property and that the fine print is very, very clear who owns what. Um, you also will need an agent. An agent is required. Traditional publishers will not talk to you if you do not have an agent. So that's another step and process that you'd have to go through, securing an agent so that they can represent you to hopefully shop your book around to publishers. And then overall, it's just a much longer process. So you're looking at anywhere from 18 to 24 months to get the book published if you go the traditional route. And then finally, you have less creative control because if the publisher is already paying you in advance and they're taking a risk on releasing your work, they do get the final say on the cover, on the editing, on a lot of those elements. So just something to keep in mind. Hybrid publishing is self-publishing, but it's done for you. That's the best way that I can define it. It doesn't require an agent. It has the perks of self-publishing with the quality of traditional publishing, but it will cost you. I have heard of people who've used hybrid publishers and they have spent tens of thousands of dollars. I, I I know one person who has spent like $50,000 on a hybrid publisher, and it took everything in me to control my facial expression because it is very, very possible to publish and release a book for a fraction of that amount. So just do your research if you choose to go that route. If you want the convenience and kind of that white glove concierge service, that's fine. But just be mindful that some of them can be very expensive and some of them can be kind of bloated in their pricing. So these are the three publishing paths. And when you know how your book is going to be published or how you want it to be published, the decisions get a lot easier, right? So that will help you determine the length of the book. That will help you determine your release goals. It'll also help you figure out your marketing plan, right? And are you going to be collaborating with other entities to figure out your marketing plan, or are you coming up with that on your own? So when you're thinking about the publishing process, just choose wisely. And know that you do have a lot of options. Now, some of you are sitting here and you've been very patient and you're like, Michelle, I already have a book. I've already written a book. I've already written several books. What about me? And this section is for you. So, my question to you when it comes to the book that you've already written and published, is your book earning its keep? What do I mean by that? You spent the time to write the book. You poured in your creative energy into it. You probably invested some money to get it published and to release it into the world, and maybe even to market your book. But is it earning its keep? Um, do you like your royalty rates? Is it opening doors for speaking opportunities? Are you using it as a warm handshake? What is the book doing for you and your business that it wasn't doing before? So some things to consider for those of you who already have a book. Make sure that you already have a clear vision and a market for the book. This is kind of the pitfall that a lot of people will make. They'll publish a book, they'll release a book because it's a passion project. They're really passionate about it. And there's nothing wrong with being passionate about what you write about. I think that's a wonderful thing. But if you wrote your book and it doesn't have a business purpose attached to it, and I'm talking about those of you who maybe you wrote the book because you're a speaker or you're a coach or you have a thought leadership brand that you're trying to build. But if you wrote a book that didn't have a specific business purpose attached to it, don't be surprised if it's not producing for you what you had hoped. You also need to know how it will serve your overall business and brand. So if the positioning is generic and it doesn't pull a specific reader, don't be surprised if the sales aren't where you want it to be. Also, a big mistake that I see a lot of authors make is that they don't have a compelling offer behind the book, and they don't have a system to convert readers into clients, and they don't have a system to convert readers into stages for those of you who are speakers. So there might not be enough eyes on the book, and for the few eyes that are on the book, um, they don't have a call to action. They don't know what to do after they finish reading the book. I had a client who told me, "Yeah, at the back of my book, I just give people my email address." And I'm like, "Well, what are they supposed to do with that?" Like, um, and it's nice to get notes from people who are like, "Oh my gosh, I read your book. I really enjoyed it. It really blessed me." That's nice, but you could also have a call to action that says, "Hey, um, if this book made an impact for you, go to such and such website and check out this exclusive resource for readers of this book." And you could collect their information, create a nurture sequence, and eventually get them to buy a high ticket course of yours. Right? There are a lot of different things that you can do, especially when you establish trust with somebody who's taken the time and invested the time to read your book and get a feel for what your area of expertise is. So I'll give you guys an example. What I have personally done with one of my books. So my book, The Prophetic Listening Method, this is a book that I wrote about 6 years ago, and I'm still using it to grow and expand my thought leadership brand. So the book itself, and these are very, I don't even want to say I almost said conservative numbers, but they're actually not. Like the book costs less than $3 to print because it's a very thin book. It's not like my magnum opus or anything. My novels are, but not my nonfiction. So the book costs about $3 to print through Kindle Direct Publishing, right? I retail the book for like $25 when I'm doing an in-person event. Let's say that I have an event where there's like 300 attendees or maybe 250 attendees, right? And 200 of them buy. That's a $4,400 profit. That's on top of what I made from my speaking fee. Okay. Um, the beauty of taking your books to your events, as long as there's alignment, right? With the book's topic and what you're speaking about, is that you already have the trust of the room. So one of the things that I do, and this I'm going to add this for free, in order to get people to get excited about buying the book, because I've had a lot of people ask me, well, there's no guarantee that you're going to get those back of the room sales. Well, I do something that usually gets me like 90% of my stock sold out. So what I do is I hold up my book at the very beginning, right before I deliver the talk. And I give a little bit of information about the book, why I wrote it, who's it for, the impact that it's going to make, the transformation that it promises. And then I look around the room and I ask, who here needs X, Y, and Z to happen in their lives, right? Almost all the hands shoot up. Okay. And then I say, who here would love a copy of this book? All the hands shoot up again. And I say, okay, well, whoever wants it the most, come up and get it. Right. And usually, sometimes there's a race of people like rushing up to get to the front to get their hands on the book. But then I sign it, I give it to the person who reached the stage first, and then I let them know, hey, I'll be in the back of the room signing more copies of those books for those of you who want it. And and then at the end of my talk, I remind them, hey, I'll be at the back signing those books if you're ready for it. So that typically gets me a really, really good ROI in terms of back of the room sales. Another thing that I've done, especially recently with specifically with the prophetic listening book, I actually make it a requirement for my workshops. So I used to make it optional where I would say, yeah, you guys should purchase a copy of the book because all the things I'm teaching here, it's in it. And then we have the journal there. And people did buy, but at a certain point I was like, this is stupid. Like I'm presenting this material. It's already in the book. I have a journal that works for it. Why don't I just make it require a requirement for anybody who registers for my event to also have a copy of the book? And so what I ended up doing was I partnered with different churches and ministries, and I just said, hey, I will come and deliver this workshop. Um, and the workshop includes a copy of the book and the journal, and it's required for people to participate. They have to have their own copy. That worked beautifully. I was able to increase the cost, the ticket per person, and I was able to make a handsome profit from that. And people were excited because they actually had a tangible product that they were holding on to, in addition to learning what they were about to learn in the workshop. So it was a win-win all around. Should have done it sooner. Okay, let's talk about the speaker revenue model here. So, option one, you just have your talk. And depending on the industry that you're in, you charge, like, let's just say $10,000 for your talk. Option two, you have a talk plus a workshop, and you decide to bundle the two. And maybe you do the talk like a Friday night, and then you have a workshop Saturday morning into the afternoon, right? And you charge 15,000 for that. Option three, you bundle your talk, your workshop, and then you have a copy of a book available for everybody in attendance. And then you're able to charge 22,000 for that. So what I'm saying is your book is a value add. It's a huge value add. It's a value add that many people underestimate or take for granted. Let's say that you did 10 gigs in 1 year with just talks, right? And you were able to charge 10,000 for each talk. Okay, that's 100,000. But you have the talks, the workshop, and the books, and you do 10 of those. That's more than double, right? So think about the math with that. And remember what I said earlier. If you don't have a book, you are leaving money on the table. So let's review some ways to leverage your book. One, tie the book to one clear offer behind it. Have a very clear call to action at the end of your book. This works even better if you have some sort of funnel, if you have an online course, if you have a high ticket training, if you're a coach, anything like that. Have a clear offer and a clear call to action. Don't have too many. I've seen some books where it's like, you can follow me on Instagram, and here's my email, and register for this class. And listen to my podcast. Like, no, 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 that's too many. If people have too many options, they're not going to take any. So have one clear CTA. Consider requiring your book for workshop use and participation if you do workshops. Use your book as a fee negotiation tool. Sometimes people don't have budgets, for example, for a speaker, or they only have a certain threshold for the speaker honorarium, but they do have another allocation for educational resources, or they have another allocation for educational tools. So don't be afraid to use your book as a fee negotiation tool. I have a business mentor. 1 year, he did not charge a speaking fee. He just said, if you get 100 copies of my book at retail, I will come and speak at your event. And that worked beautifully for him. As far as your book goes, use it as a warm handshake for introductions. Don't be afraid to. Very few people get nice little gifts and mementos in the mail. Most of us get bills, um, tax notices, things that we don't really want to look at. But if you get a nicely packaged book with a handwritten card, you're more likely to pay attention to that outreach than a cold email or a marketing letter. Okay. So let's recap and put it all together. The four keys to getting your book done: one, master your writing process; two, set a deadline and work backwards; three, know your publishing path before you write the book; and four, position your book so that it actually opens doors for you depending on what your goals are. Now, some of you here have been thinking, what about AI? You said this was the AI edition. Where's the AI piece? We finally have arrived. Okay, so let's talk about using AI with integrity and how to get your book done smarter and faster with it. So, one thing I want to note is that AI is not a ghostwriter. That's actually probably one of the most important things I can emphasize. There are people out there who have said, "Oh, I've written 20 different books," and they used AI for every single one of them, and the book is garbage. Um, do not use AI to be your ghostwriter. It's not a good idea. And people are getting more and more savvy, and they're able to recognize when something is written by AI. Even some of the publishing platforms like Kindle Direct Publishing, it has software that can recognize when something is written by AI. And if you try to pass it off as your own, sometimes there are writers who get flagged and they're not able to sell on Amazon anymore because they have misrepresented something as their own when it's not. So AI is not a ghostwriter, and as a writer, I don't think it's a good idea to offload all of your thinking onto artificial intelligence. What I do protect are the following. I protect my original ideas and insights. So when I'm releasing a book, I want to be able to say with complete integrity that that book truly was written by me, that those were my ideas, that those were my insights, that those were my thoughts on whatever it is that I'm writing about. And it's not something that AI produced or came up with and I just copied and pasted it. Um, I do all of the actual writing myself. So I write the sentences, I write the prose. If I'm quoting somebody, I will obviously attribute the quote to them. But the actual writing, so that my voice um, stays in integrity, that is something that I'm adamant on. I actually do the writing within Scrivener or Word or whatever document software I use. My frameworks and original IP, that is something that I protect. And when I say that I protect it, I also mean that I'm not going to put it back into AI. So let's just say that I have a specific framework or an original thought or idea. I'm not going to put that and just dump that into AI willy-nilly in order to perfect it or brainstorm it because it can take my IP and give it to somebody else. So those are things to keep in mind when you are using AI. Be careful of what you're telling it. Okay. I also protect my voice, my style, and my authority. So if I am an expert in something, then I stand in that expertise. But if I don't know what I'm talking about in a certain area, I'm not going to pretend that I do because I used AI to help me bolster that. Now, what I do delegate to AI is the following. I delegate research. I don't delegate all of my research to it. I still use, you know, uh, encyclopedias and articles and things of that nature, but it can give you a shortcut as far as research goes. One thing I will say that I do is that I always tell it, give me the citations for what you are telling me. AI can make mistakes. AI can just make stuff up. Okay? AI can just tell you something like it's a fact. And when you call it out, it's like, oh, yeah, sorry, my mistake. So don't take AI's word for it just because it says it with authority. One of the best ways to do research using AI is to tell it, I need you to include the exact citation and the link so that I can click and verify what it is that you're telling me. I also use AI for title creation. If you have a difficult time coming up with a really catchy title, if you want a title that has some alliteration, but for whatever reason you're feeling stuck, it's not a bad idea to say, hey, I'm writing a book on this subject, or I have a title idea that's this, but that's not the final title. Give me five options of alternative titles. right? And it can give you some really great main titles and subtitles. You could also tell it, hey, I really like alliteration. Can you give me some titles with alliteration that's catchy? Um, can you give me some titles that have a higher likelihood of drawing this type of demographic to it, right? So it can help you with title creation in a really good way. AI can also help by breaking through some writer's blocks. So I don't jump to this right away. Actually, I'll be honest, I don't really have writer's block. But if I ever feel like maybe my writing is dragging in some way, I typically turn to other things. I'll go on a walk. I will journal about it. Maybe I'll talk to a friend. So I do recommend like do other things before you do this. But if you are still absolutely stuck, you can use AI to help you break through the writer's block. You can give it certain prompts that will help you think about the area that you're stuck on in a different angle. You could ask it to give you um, some excerpts or some potential directions that the book can go in and what will happen to the overall book if you move in that direction. So there are some ways that you can use it to help you break through that writer's block and keep you from getting stuck. And then I also sometimes use it for surgical editing and proofreading. Now, what do I mean by surgical? I mean that I do not allow it to actually just go in and completely go in and change the actual manuscript. So usually what I'll tell it is, hey, here's a portion of the book, and I need you to search for any spelling errors, any typos, any grammatical errors, and don't fix it for me, just highlight it to me. Why do I do that? Because what I don't want AI to do, and it has a pretty bad habit of doing it, regardless of which AI you use. It can do it in ChatGPT, it does it in Claude, where it just kind of goes over scope and it makes all these changes. And then all of a sudden, your voice and your tone and your style is lost because you told it to edit and then it decided to rewrite for you. So if you're going to use it for editing, I usually will have it just highlight what the error is, and then I make the decision if I'm gonna change it or not. Because sometimes it'll highlight something and it's like, actually, no, I did that on purpose. So that's not an error. Um, so those are some things to consider. Now, how do you actually keep AI in its lane? I think it's important. It's just as important to tell AI what not to do as to tell it what it should do. Okay. So sometimes we will give AI a prompt and we'll tell it, hey, I want you to do this, this, and this. But we don't give it specific instructions on what not to do. And that's when scope overreach can happen. So be very clear. I want you to do this, and I do not want you to do this, this, and this, right? And if you're not sure what to tell it not to do, ask it to tell you. I know this sounds crazy. It kind of sounds like something out of the Matrix, right? But you can ask AI to give you a correct prompt so that it can actually follow your instructions to a T rather than you trying to come up with the wording yourself. And then try to keep it at one request at a time. So a lot of times we compound requests into AI, and then that can sometimes degrade the results. So if you stick with one request at a time, so for example, if you're going to do like proofreading, don't ask it for its opinion on what you've written. Just ask it to just do the surgical proofread first. Okay? Remember that you are the final decision maker. So the whole goal with AI is to allow it to make those surgical changes that you need or to give you some feedback, but don't let it be a runaway train. You have to actually train it, and eventually it will learn what it is that you're going for. I'm going to say it one more time. AI is not a ghostwriter, but it can be a powerful asset. Okay. All right. I have a challenge for you. All of you have done a really great job of hanging in there, listening to me go on and on and on about the different elements of writing and publishing and marketing and using AI. But I want you to consider this challenge because it's one thing to just listen to all of this and take it in. It's another thing to actually do something with it. So my challenge to you is to decide by the end of this week how you're going to move forward with your book and your brand. Okay. Decide by this end of this week, what are you going to do to actually move your book and your brand forward? Maybe for some of you, it's setting a deadline. Hey, I want to have the book in my hands by this date. Maybe for others of you, it's looking at the manuscript that's kind of been sitting and collecting dust on your desk and saying, okay, how do I actually re-engage with this and get it over the finish line? Maybe for those of you, it's telling a friend, I need an accountability partner. I need somebody to help me show up and actually get this book done. For others of you, it may be reaching out to me. So I own Honora Advisory, and it is an advisory firm that helps people to not only get their book done, but also grow their thought leadership brands. And so, for those of you who showed up to this call, I am offering a 1 hour one-on-one diagnostic, just the two of us. And this will actually give you an opportunity to find out exactly where you are, not just in your book, but your overall thought leadership brand. So, what I do is I meet with you for an hour. After we meet, I create a customized roadmap that's specific to your situation and your goals. And then we have a live 45-minute results call where we walk through the results of that diagnostic. So it's in 3 phases, right? And this happens within 48 hours of your call. So the first phase is you and I meet. We have a one-on-one conversation for an hour. I ask you a whole bunch of questions about your brand, your business goals, your thought leadership brand, what you're trying to accomplish, if a book is appropriate for you to have at this point in time and why. And then phase number two, I diagnose and I recommend next steps and I create a full write out for you, a report, a written report. Phase three, we meet and we go over those results. And then I make a recommendation of actionable steps that you can take over the next 6 months. So, this is a quote from one of my clients who did the diagnostic with me, and they ended up becoming a client of mine, and they were able to finish their tiny book and use it for his speaking business as well. While we are here and on this slide, I actually do want to highlight some questions that came in because I saw the chat going like crazy, and I believe that Krista was was managing that. So I'm going to go ahead and allow her to let me know what some of the questions are. She also already put in the chat though the link to sign up for that diagnostic. So if you are interested in that one-on-one hour call with me where I look at your situation, I meet with you, I ask the questions, and then we talk about next steps for the next 6 months, what you need to be focused on, go ahead and click on that link that she put in the chat. Krista, go ahead and name some of these questions for me, if you will.
Sure. So we had a couple questions come through. The first one is, how do you know what your word count target is to set your by session word count?
That's a great question. So, your word count, typically you're going to be looking at the type of book that you're wanting to write. Okay. So, there are some people who are writing like what we call tiny books, and those are books that could be anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000 words total. And we call them tiny books because they're really short. They stick to the point. It's not meant to be a large read. In fact, tiny books are starting to pick up on popularity because a lot of people have shorter attention spans. Let's just be honest. And they look at a larger book and they might think, oh, that's a time commitment. I don't know if I can do it, right? Versus a tiny book where they go, oh, okay, you're just going to get to the point and tell me what your point of view is. Okay, I can take an hour to read that. So if you're looking at a tiny book, that's usually about 10,000 to 15,000 words. If you're looking at a larger book, though, like a larger piece of nonfiction where you're going into more detail about your area of expertise, then you're looking at anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 words, depending on the scope of what you're trying to teach. And there isn't a right or wrong to it. It just comes down to how much you want to fit into a single volume of work. So once you know the overall word count, and there are ways to kind of track that. So one of the things that I do in my diagnostic with people who have met with me is I ask them, okay, where are you wanting to go with this book? Like, how many chapters do you envision? What are the topics and the subtopics that you're going to be covering? Because then we can determine if you're looking at a 10 chapter book or if you're looking at a 25 chapter book. And depending on the length of that, the word count for each chapter can vary depending on the genre. Okay. So I hope that that doesn't feel like a politician's answer because that's not what I'm going for. What I'm saying is it really does depend on the genre of the book, how much content you have, and also what your goal is. A lot of business writers will write tiny books because they're trying to get to one specific point or scope of their expertise and draw people into a course or a training or, deeper work with them. And then there are others who have a larger body of work for their book because it's more about the book and less about what the reader does after they finish reading the book. Okay. Hope that helps. Okay. What's the next question?
The next one is book sales. Do you need a retail license? Do you do cash only? If not, how are credit cards handled?
Great question. No, you do not need a retail license. And in terms of how cash is handled, so I'm assuming this question refers to like back of the room sales. When I'm doing back of the room sales, I am very specific about what type of payments I'll accept. You can use Stripe or Square. Square has like a port that you can put into your phone that people can tap their card against, or they can swipe their card through to receive card payments. I've also used different payment apps like Zelle. I've also used Venmo, and I have used PayPal to receive payments. So I try to keep my payments as electric as possible or as digital as possible because I don't want to deal with having to exchange cash. I have had situations where I showed up and a lot of people had cash. And what I ended up doing was I did have some cash where I could break things, but if somebody came up with like $100 bill, I'm like, okay, why don't you get a book and a couple gifts for other people because I'm not about to break this thing up for you, you know? And then sometimes I've seen people get really creative. Let's say that they only have cash and but I'm only receiving payments through Venmo or Zelle. They'll reach over to their fellow attendee and go, "Hey, I really want to get this book. She's only accepting Venmo. Can I give you this cash and you can pay her what I just gave you?" And people are really flexible in that way. So you get to actually set the rules for the currency that you're going to receive and how you're going to receive it so that it's not stressful for you. And most people today, they are looking at the most convenient way to make those payments, and they already have those payment processors available for them. Okay, great question. Next one.
All right, we have one more, I believe. And
Okay.
this one is, if you have already written a book, how do you go back and change the CTA so that readers now become clients?
Great question. I would look at who formatted the book for you. Who did the interior formatting? If you did it yourself, great. You can just go back into the manuscript, the document, and make those updates. Um, Krista and I have gone through this several times because I have had her reach out to the person who formatted my book for me to make different changes depending on what I'm offering at the moment. And usually you're paying like a nominal fee, like, I don't know, $20 or whatever to have them to change some of the copy in the back of the book. But I'm also if you can't find the original person who did the formatting for you, you can always send that file to another interior formatter and have them make those changes. Alternatively, you can format your own book. There is a software called Atticus that that allows, and it's only like $149 for a one-time license. You can purchase it, like lifetime license, you can purchase it, and it has a bunch of templates that you can load your manuscript into, and you can format it yourself. That's probably something I'm going to be looking at in my next book that I'm going to be releasing, so that I can save the money on the interior formatter, and then I also have the ability to change the call to action at the back anytime I want. Okay. Another thing that I would recommend doing too is maybe have a call to action link that you have a designated link for the CTA, and that way you can change whatever is in that link whenever you want. Okay. So let's just say I'm going to use Bill Knapp as an example. Maybe you just have billknappresources.com, right? And that's the CTA that you're pointing people to. Well, when they go to that, you could change whatever's on that site at any time. And that way, if you have a new CTA, a new program, a new thing that you're wanting to promote, you don't have to go back to the book and change it every single time. Okay. All right. Were those all the questions? We only had like what, three?
There's a couple more that came through if you want to take another
A couple
one.
more that came through? Okay. Oh, did you send it to me? Did you send it to me?
No.
Okay. Where are they?
I can read one off. Let's see.
Okay.
Um, this one says, your diagnostic, do you offer any opinion on whether topic would generate
Generate
interest?
interest.
Yeah, or direction to take writing book is not written.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some diagnostics that I'll take that I've done where they'll mention the topic and then we'll talk about audience placement if it's something that's oversaturated or undersaturated and how the book can be positioned or how you might want to tweak the topic accordingly so that it is more marketable. That's absolutely something that we can discuss. Um, and then I've also had some people who I've talked to and I'm like, I don't yeah, like I don't think you should move forward in this direction. Like, I don't think this is going to be the best use of your time. I rarely say that though. Usually people have a very clear idea of what they want to write. Okay. Back of the room book sale prices. How do you set different from retail price? Great question. So with back of the room sales, I typically try to make it in alignment with what I'm selling the book for on online. So, and honestly, when I set my book price online, like on Amazon, I'm setting it with the idea that I'm going to be doing most of my selling is going to be back of the room anyway. So I kind of set that price with that goal in mind. So I do the math in my head. How much does the book cost to actually print and piece together outside of retail costs, right? So how much would it cost per copy for me to purchase as an author? And then I look at what I could reasonably charge so that I have a healthy profit margin because you also have to pay for shipping as the author, right? It's not an egregious amount, but that's something to keep in mind because that's going to cut into your profit margin. So it actually depends on the word count, not the word count, I'm sorry, the page count of your book, the thickness of the spine, because the printer is going to keep that in mind when they're printing X number of copies of your book. And um, there's most printers have a calculator that you can go and see, oh, this is what approximately what it's going to cost based on the length and the size of my book and the dimensions of the book. Um, so yeah, that's typically how I go about it. I hope I answered that. Deanna wrote, just curious, do you feel like once you've written your first book, writing another and another gets easier? Yes. I can't say that louder enough. Yes, it gets so much easier. The first book, I'm telling you, man, that was woo, child. But once I got the first one done, I was like, yay, I did it. I can do the next one. And actually, it helped me to figure out the first book was like baptism by fire because I had to figure out how my brain actually worked when writing the book. It was the first book where I realized that Word documents do not work for me. I cannot write my book in a Word document. I can't write my book in chronological order. It's going to drive me crazy. That's when I found the tool for Scrivener. And once I found it, it was like everything was unlocked and I was like, oh, I can do it. I can get it done and I can get it done relatively quickly. And then of course, as you write more, you get better and the books get better and you get better feedback, right? But you have to get started somewhere. And so I had really, really good reviews on the first book, but the reviews have just gotten better and better as I've written more. Yeah. Okay. Somebody asked, what if you have a book and now you're creating second and third editions? How much new content do you add to make it an updated edition? These books are self-published. That's actually up to you. I would look at how content wise, I think it's less about how much you're adding and more about the new content. And are you adding like three or four pieces of new intellectual property that's going to really enhance the quality of the book? If that's the case, that's great. But if there's like maybe one tweak that you're making, it might not be worth it to do that. right? So that's something I would keep in mind. Um, okay. Are there any other questions? Did I miss anything? Oh, did Deborah ask a question? Yes. My question is, since I'm doing a flip book resource guidebook for teenagers and young adults in journal style with a few book type chapters. Okay, 300. So do I need to meet with you being that I'm not creating a novel? Oh yeah, if you're not creating a novel, that's fine. I have most of the people who meet with me are writing something that is nonfiction, so that's not a problem. But yeah, great question. And that's exciting. Congrats on the book. If you have already written a book, how do you go back and change? Okay, I think we already covered that. Cool. Did we get everything? I think we got everything. Are we good, Krista?
Think we got it all.
All right. Okay. So I'm gonna have Krista drop that link one more time into the chat. But I want to thank you guys for joining me on this training. The replay will be up for the next 72 hours. Okay. So we will have that available for you guys to review. And yeah, I hope to meet with you guys one on one. Thank you so much for joining me, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Michelle.
My pleasure. Let me stop the recording here.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi,
You may
Chris.
not remember me, but I remember you. You were excellent at another workshop I participated in, and you onboarded me and IO. IO